and as a result, we can then perceive things as a result of that. And therefore, there's a source of the light called the sun. Therefore, the same dynamics are said to be above it. Therefore, the good that luminosity stands to light in our visible universe, and things seen, therefore, are knowable objects. Right, we'll call them the knowables. And as the eye sees here, so too in this world, so the soul sees. Therefore, it's a parallel. Now, we're going to use this language as we proceed. Since he spends a good deal of time developing the structure of the study of number, if he concludes with this, that exactly picks up the major distinction, the divided line in Book 6. So we're going to see how that plays back and forth. Well, the first thing he does is that he said we must study something that applies to all of the studies that we're going to pursue. That's geometry, solid geometry, astronomy, harmony, and dialectic. So we need a study that applies to all. All right, that's what we need. A study that applies to all. All the arts and forms of understanding and knowledge. Right? That's what we must need. We have to study something that is common to all the arts and sciences. When the translators translate the word science, it's really knowledge. So therefore, he said, what you have to do is study something that applies to all the arts and forms of understanding and knowledge. Now, these two words, understanding and knowledge, as you can see in the divided line, we're calling that the divided line. Therefore, we're going to study something, you see, that applies to this whole realm. That's what he's saying. This whole realm. It applies to this whole realm, and that is number. And understanding is the dianoia, knowledge is episteme. And therefore, it applies to all of the arts. No, there are no arts below this line, of course. Arts in that knowledgeable sense, not popular arts, or visual arts, intellectual arts. Therefore, what we must do is study number and the reasoning that goes with number. Let's say we must study number and the reasoning that goes with number. Now, this kind of reasoning that goes with number is variously translated, and some translators call it calculation. But that already assumes we know what he's talking about when we're talking about number. Because the word itself is logismo, which has that meaning, but it also means the kind of reasoning that goes along with number. Okay, we got it now. A certain kind of reasoning that goes along with number that applies to this whole realm. Well, he said, I'm doing something rather simple. All it requires is learning how to make distinctions, such as between 1, 2, and 3. What? This whole thing is just making? Yes. He said, because if you understand what I'm doing, that will awaken the intellect and it draws the mind to ousia, or essence. That's the province. What does it do? What he's going to do with number, is going to awaken the mind, right? We're going to wake up the mind. Right? Right? We're going to wake up the mind. Boom. Right? It's going to draw the mind to this very experience. That's what it's going to do. Well, so by numbers 1, 2, and 3, this is preposterous. It's absurd. What he gets away with. Or there's something here. I mean, this is either trivial, and he's building a case out of literally trivialities and making it appear profound, or there's something worth looking at. Well, we'll take a look. It's all right. Is there 3 things? 1, 2, and 3. I have to make a distinction between 1, 2, and 3. By the way, he makes 3 kinds of judgments. He talks about 3 fingers. So we have a repetition of this very interesting idea. Let's take a look at what he's doing. Notice now, we're going to be talking about number, and the examples that he's going to use to show it have nothing to do with number whatsoever, which is exactly what you would expect. Let's see. He said, look here, the first kind of thing that in studying is that we use perception. Some translators call this sensation. The word sensation isn't as strong because it's perception. All right? There's a class of perception, and it doesn't awaken thought, it doesn't awaken the intellect, because the judgment by perception is adequate for a whole class of things. Perfectly legitimate. There's a whole class of things that when you perceive, it doesn't awaken the mind of anything. There, a piece of chalk. Perception. No, nothing comes up. It's no problem. You can see it, call it that. Perception. He says, now, but there's another kind of perception that yields nothing that can be trusted. It's these kinds of perceptions that invite the intellect to reflection. Now, just look here. In order to make this clear, he's going to use 3 fingers. So you take the 3 fingers, and here you see a picture of 3 beautiful fingers, as you can tell. And he says, look, you know what? Each is a finger. Regardless of where it is, each is a finger. And in that respect, they don't differ. You can say one is bigger or smaller. You can say one is thinner or thicker. But this idea of bigger, all right, bigger, all of the ERs, that's a comparative judgment, right? That's comparative. I mean, this is certainly smaller than this, but it's bigger than this. And so on with all comparative judgments. All comparative judgments are relative to the thing that you're measuring it against. Is that therefore, perception then can report this as being both bigger and smaller. Oh, hey, look here. He says, you know what? The same thing is true for bigness. Now, notice we're moving from ERs to NESs. He says, look here. Then, after all, what's bigness if it's dependent upon relative judgments? I mean, what's bigness? Is that independent of bigger? Yeah, you're pulling somehow a quality out of what you perceive as this is bigger than that. You're trying to grasp something beyond the comparative judgment when you talk about bigness, that quality of bigger. But then when you talk about bigness, exactly what do you mean? Does it mean anything just by itself, bigness? Well, yeah, it's that quality which runs through all the judgments I make.